All right, good evening. This is a call to order for the City of Canal, Winchester Planning and Zoning meeting for Monday, July 13th, 2026. Mr. Deeds, roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Donahue.
Present.
Ms. Gooden.
Present.
Mr. Deeds, present. And Mr. Pelsgrove.
Present. Motion to excuse Mr.
Oh, I'm
Ritchie
sorry.
and Ms. McDonald.
We had so many missing.
Second.
Do we need to
Motion.
excuse Mr. Willenfeller as well, or the fact
Oh.
that he's resigned is
Yeah, you can excuse
not
him.
material?
He's still on the docket for today.
Okay.
Then I would amend that motion to excuse all three of them, Ritchie, McDonald, and Wildenfeller.
Thank you, Ms. Gooden.
All right, motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. And Mr. Pelsgrove.
Yes.
All right, so I've declared a quorum. We do have 3 members unfortunately not present this evening, so per city statute, there must be 4 affirmative votes for a motion to pass or carry. So for example, if we vote 3-1, that motion would not pass or carry. So I let everybody know that in advance. We have a pretty healthy agenda tonight. So you do have the option to table. We will discuss every motion, and we will ask for a vote on every motion unless otherwise discussed. Now I need approval of minutes for the June 8th meeting, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, motion made by Mr. Paulsgrove, second by Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. And Mr. Pelsgrove.
Yes.
All right, so now is time on the agenda for public comment. So if you're here this evening to speak to us for any agenda item or any non-agenda item, now would be your chance. Okay? If you'll be speaking with us this evening, you can sign in. If you've signed in previously, that's okay. You can sign in when you come up. But if there's any chance you'll speak to us this evening, could you please stand if you're able and take an oath? All right, do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
All right, thank you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Moore for our first agenda item this evening.
The first item on tonight's agenda is VA 26011. The address of subject property is 7411 Cali Street. The request this evening is a variance from the Canal Cove standards for administrative approval to permit a fence to be located within the rear yard. The subject property, the applicant is requesting for a fence in the location outlined with the red box within the rear yard of the parcel. The development for Canal Cove, when it was basically created by Dominion Homes at its original conception, had a list of deed restrictions and other HOA restrictions that were also a part of a document to be enforced by the City of Canal, Winchester in a joint effort. As part of that list, fences are prohibited within the rear yards of this development. Otherwise, if you have a swimming pool where zoning code requires a fence, that fence would be a maximum of 48 inches in height. So that happened back in 1995, continued through 2003, again with Dominion Homes. And then in 2015, when Westport Homes came through and developed the rest of the subdivision out, they reaffirmed those conditions for administrative approval. I have kind of all the 3 of those timelines located for you in the staff report. When looking at the applicant's submittal here, they have requested relief from this standard due to a support letter from their VA physician stating that due to various medical conditions and PTSD which the applicant suffers require the installation of a fence to secure the full enjoyment of his home and his property. This document was served under the Fair Housing Act of Americans with Disabilities, which both require reasonable efforts on behalf of the city. The applicant here put together this letter going over their request for the fence, as well as a copy of the VA, prescription for the fence. When looking at the criteria for approval itself, For special circumstances and conditions, the applicant has provided a medical recommendation that specify his needs for his treatment. For a literal interpretation of the zoning code, the applicant would be deprived of his rights to use and enjoy his property based on his medical condition and his doctor's recommendation. Special conditions and circumstances, in this case, result from medical diagnosis and recommendation from a VA physician. That granting of this variance grants a privilege, but it's not an undue privilege because, again, of the medical diagnosis. And staff is recommending that for this fence to not adversely affect the public health, safety, convenience, comfort, prosperity, and general welfare, that the fence approval shall expire upon the transfer of the property from the current owner/applicant and be removed from the premises upon transfer of the property. This recommendation of the fence does not adversely affect these items because the variance is directly tied to the applicant and the conditions and circumstances of the variance request. Granting this variance does not put the property to any better economic use, and that it'll permit a fence, it does permit a fence that is not permitted elsewhere, but again, based on the medical conditions and diagnoses, staff is noting that this specific instance should be recommended for approval. So staff has come up with the 4 conditions and their recommendation for approval for the Planning and Zoning Commission. The first, that this fence permit shall expire upon the transfer of the property from the current owner and shall be removed from the premises upon transfer of the property. Number 2, that the owner and applicant shall work with the city to attempt to record a notice of this fence permit with the Fairfield County Recorder's Office to make all potential future purchasers aware of the expiration of this fence permit upon transfer. Number 3, that granting of this variance application does not supersede or otherwise preempt the covenants and restrictions prohibiting fences under the Canal Cove HOA. And then number 4, that the fence shall be located entirely within the rear yard of the property. This item here is in relation to this portion of the fence that extended out past the rear yard to enclose a portion of the generator. Again, the applicant's request in the VA letters talked about securing the property for their enjoyment, talking about trespass and other issues that trigger some of the PTSD results. This limitation here confined to the rear yard, from staff's opinion, did not need to include the portion of the side yard that more directly affects the neighboring property.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Have you discussed the possible conditions with the applicant?
Staff has not. I don't know if our legal counsel here has, but we were aided in drafting this letter just due to the nature of the medical diagnosis and things like that are pretty uncommon for a staff review. But the applicant does have representation here. I believe the spouse is here to talk to you guys as well.
Good.
Unfortunately, a few questions. When it talks about keeping the fence within the property, does that align with our setbacks?
So the fence location itself does meet all of our setback requirements.
Okay.
And height. One of the things that the applicant doesn't really directly point out, but there are some infrastructure items within the rear yard for utilities. So the applicant is showing on their proposal here to box those out. That way the utility companies have access to those items and don't have to go within the fenced-in rear yard, which I believe is part of the medical diagnosis for basically unforeseen trespass.
Right. I do want to say I am extremely sympathetic and appreciative of the gentleman's service in the past. It's just, I agree, it's kind of a sticky situation for us. You said so the 6-foot fence is appropriate?
That is,
City code, right?
so the 6-foot max height is our max height, yes.
Okay. And if you were to do a pool, then it requires a fence, so that,
Correct, yeah. A swimming pool requires a minimum of a 48-inch rear fence.
okay. And then I guess the really fun question is, whose responsibility is it to enforce deed restrictions?
So the deed restrictions are enforceable by the community of Canal Cove. So that would be enforceable by, I correct me, Jesse, but the residents of Canal Cove, because they also bought into those similar deed restrictions on their adjacent parcels. Any HOA restrictions would be a part of the association. So really there are 3 layers to this. We, as the city level, are only one of the 3 layers.
Okay. And then just to be thorough, I didn't get a chance to look it up. Do you know when the property was purchased?
The property was purchased in 2004, 2005. This applicant is the original owner of the parcel.
Okay.
Couple questions. Do they require, are we requiring, I don't see this as a condition, I apologize if I missed it, homeowners association approval for this?
And Jesse, if you want to answer that.
We are not requiring it, but we are, condition number 3 is essentially stating that even though we grant this variance, if we were to grant this variance, it doesn't remove the requirement to get approval from the HOA. So that the applicant will have to do whatever they have to do, go through that process, and
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure that was clear. And then, how does the city and legal counsel intend to work with the applicant on proper recording and monitoring of the fence permit and property transfer and those types of changes down the road?
I am working, I've been in communication, might not shock many of you that work in this world, but sometimes the back and forth with recorders' offices isn't as prompt as you might like it to be. But I've worked through sort of some options for what can be recorded, some type of covenant or a notice, just so that, when somebody does a title search, that it appears on it, and we'll just continue to sort of run that down if this were to be granted.
Okay, and then the applicant would obviously be paying for any of those third-party fees?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I guess just maybe one other thing. Is it worth adding a condition that it doesn't set a precedent for us attempting to override community's HOA deed restrictions, or any deed restrictions, honestly, because this isn't really HOA, it's a deed restriction, it's a deed restriction.
Yes, so our variance process does not take into account any private neighborhood HOA or deed restrictions. The variance process is from the municipal code. So a good example is if a municipal code permits something and a HOA prohibits something, we would not consider that in our analysis to require a variance.
So could we get in a situation where we were to approve this and the HOA were to refuse it?
I think we could.
And then his remedy would be with the HOA?
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? Is there anything if the applicant has representation that's here, if you'd wish to add anything? And if you could, ma'am, just sign in if you haven't and
I did.
state your name for the record. Thank you.
Fatima Sabir, and I am spouse and authorized VA caregiver. So I'm just going to read this to you, kind of let you know a little bit about who's actually doing the actual project for the disabled veteran. So again, my name is Fatima Sabir, and I'm here tonight representing my husband of 32 years, retired Sergeant Bilal James Sabir, USMC, regarding the variance application for 7411 Cali Street in Canal Cove subdivision. Before I begin, for the benefit of the official record and minutes, I respectfully have 2 brief questions just for the board. Are there any licensed medical doctors currently sitting on the commission right now? Any of you?
Are we?
They're not obligated.
That-
We're not obligated, Dan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So the project is a part of the federal recognized special home adaptation, or the SHA housing accommodation framework, through the Department of the Veterans Affairs. So that's how this is, of who's actually paying for the project. Which specifically approves home modifications to give disabled veterans equal safe access to their residential properties. So we're going to, allow Dr. Muhammad's professional medical directives and the VA SHA framework speak entirely for themselves regarding the underlying health conditions of the veteran. And so as his caregiver, I was approved by the VA. My husband is more than 100% disabled veteran. And so in October of last year, I stopped working to take care of him and to become the VA-approved caregiver. So if you have any questions for me, I can only answer from a caregiver's perspective, but I still can't give any medical anything because his doctor kind of speaks for that. And we purchased the home in 2004, and we've been there 22 years. When we purchased the home, my husband was 54, so we had he's 76 now, and could not foresee all of these medical things that are going on with him currently. So we respectfully ask the commission to honor the medical directive provided by Dr. Muhammad, respect the intent of the VA's SHH program, and just comply with federal reasonable accommodation standards and approve this variance tonight so that my husband can enjoy his home and I can safely care for him. And I also wanted to just bring to your attention, and I think I spoke with you, Mr. Donahue.
I have not spoke to you, ma'am.
No, well, I think my husband did when he called. We are getting things, and I just wanted to show you from the variance, where they're asking for like $1,500, and then we got another one for $4,000. So I don't know, I just wanted to bring, I know,
Yeah.
I heard that
Thank you
it
for bringing
was.
charge. Yeah, you probably talked to Mr. Moore or somebody in the city
So,
staff office.
yeah, but I wanted to let you know that we continue to get
Yeah,
those, just so.
Just ignore them.
Okay, and that kind of is concerning if
Yeah.
his medical information is in your system because it's compromised now?
Yeah, I
So-
can't speak to any of that, but.
Yeah.
So just for, clarity, for not only this applicant, but other applicants in this room.
Yeah.
We have been receiving phishing attempts through our applications that have been submitted through our system. Basically, we post our full agenda. And for the last 18 months, 19 months, there has been an individual that has been fraudulently sending invoices to all the applicants. Starting in January this year, the mayor determined that we needed to redact all the contact information from the applications,
Okay,
but that's only from the city application forms. It doesn't include any other contact information that an applicant puts in their submittal beyond filling out our administrative form. So
Okay.
like in your case, we did look through your application, and there are, I can even pull it up here. The board has the full application. Your husband signed the application with his email, his phone number.
yeah,
He provided another source of contact information for the scam artist to try to reach out. So I'm not aware of beyond one other applicant in tonight's meeting where I found a similar instance where they signed something beyond the application that has been reached out to. It's unfortunate the world we live in, but we have notices on our website, on all of our application pages, on our fees pages, and in all of the zoning signatories through emails that say we will never ask for wire transfers. Please call if you have any questions. So I apologize, you've been receiving multiple, inquiries from that threat, but, we are definitely doing our best to try to combat that harm. Internet's a terrible place, so.
okay.
You seem to be somewhat hooked into some government entities. Please report it. It takes people reporting things for the government to go after them.
Okay.
Right,
Yes,
the
because they
government
have
has
the
teeth.
stamp, they
Right.
have Mr. Donahue's
Yep.
name.
Oh,
and-
with
Yeah.
the AI these days, they can do darn near everything, so.
Oh, wow, okay,
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant before we move on?
Is there a reason for a 6-foot fence versus a 4?
I think it was just the standard of what the VA does. That's not, we would have to ask them.
Okay.
That goes according to that SHA program.
Have you reached out to the HOA,
Yes, we have.
and what are they telling you?
They haven't said anything yet. I don't know if they maybe were waiting for this hearing, but it was back in 2020, around that time, when he needed a deck, and at that time, they did approve that. But then it went with the city, and they didn't approve it, and it was COVID, and, I mean, it was all crazy at that time. So we worked closely with them. David, I think David died.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so this is a variance, so there is a public hearing, so I'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody here to speak on this agenda item from the public, time limit's 3 minutes. If you could, sir, just sign in and state your name. We won't start the clock until you begin speaking.
Already done, signed in already.
If you could just state your name for the record.
Tim Bruni from the Canal Cove Homeowners Association.
Okay.
I am the president of the HOA and have been on the HOA board since its inception when it was turned over to the community about 5 years ago.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I was,
Please.
immediate question. Recommendation number 2, what's to prevent the homeowner from leaving the facility, leaving the home, and it still being in their name, the deed not changing, and them not living there anymore, and having someone else live there? What's our recourse for that issue? Number 1. Number 2, the HOA has never, in its time of being in existence under the community's control, we have never approved a permit application for fencing for the entirety of our regulation of that, or that of the association, for anyone that's applied for anything, except for the 2 pools that we have. Those are the only 2 fences that are in the neighborhood. I have personally lived in the neighborhood since July of 2003. I was the 5th house built in the neighborhood, so I've been there 23 years, and I have seen all versions of applications and people wanting to have fences, decks, sheds of all kinds that have all been declined by the HOA. There are alternative methods that are under use in our community in other homes that can accomplish this same task without it being a fence. They can have plantings along the property line. They have a beautiful new concrete patio out in the back. They can put a pergola on that patio, put some arborvitae around that, create that safe space, put a trellis down the side. We have a trellis down the side of our pergola on our back patio because we're on a corner. It works wonderfully to prevent that noise and give that safe space to that area. So there are multiple other alternative methods other than a 6-foot vinyl fence that will completely destroy the integrity of the neighborhood that we have worked 25 years to establish and maintain. It's going to create a major issue on the HOA, our design review board, because this will become addictive. When someone finds out that someone has been granted a fence, we're going to be flooded with these applications, and they're going to have whatever reasoning, whatever justification they feel they need to generate a fence, and it is going to foul our neighborhood. You can go through our neighborhood and you can see across everyone's yards. You can't do that in any other community. You don't find rotten decks falling off a porch, falling off the back of a person's house. You don't find fences that are not cared for, that are falling down. In our community, we've remained clean and clear, and we intend to stay that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public on this application?
Hello, make it quick for everyone. My name is Chris Paul Putness. I live at 7419 Cali Street, right next door. Obviously, Fatima and I have been neighbors for 20 plus years. Same thing as Tim, who was just up here. And basically, Tim kind of hit on everything. This is difficult spot to be in when you're, with a neighbor who, I think we've been really good neighbors for 20-plus years, and this is a sensitive subject. And as Tim's point, worried that it could open Pandora's box. Once you open that door, that it's going to cause the city and the HOA possibly future issues. So, I want to be a good neighbor. I want to be understanding. I'm sure all you folks feel the same way. I want to be empathetic. But at the same time, these deed restrictions have been super. They have protected everyone and kept all the property values up for pushing 25 years now. And it breaks my heart that we're going to think about deviating from that. It's a bad move. And again, it's nothing personal. I think, we have a good relationship. That's what makes it tough to sit up here or stand up here and talk to you for a second. But just really think that through, that it's unfortunately just the beginning of possibly opening that door. And that's the tough spot. Don't want to pick on anyone. It's nothing with them. It's just that, like Tim said, never have they deviated from that. And I think we should not do it now. So
Thank you.
that's all I've got.
Appreciate it.
And am I able to say anything after that? Which I should.
Hang tight.
Sorry, we're right out here.
Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this application? I will need a motion to close.
Seeing none, I move to close public hearing.
Second. Roll call?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds? Yes. And Mr. Pelsgrove?
Yes. So at this time, would staff or legal wish to share any additional comments before, based on,
No, I mean, I take those points. I certainly understand them if I was in the neighborhood or on the HOA. I just, from our perspective, we have to at least make a reasonable effort to accommodate a federally mandated accommodation. And we think with the conditions here, and I also take the point on opening a Pandora's box. My only counter to that would be, and you never know, but he does have a VA-approved letter with a recommendation of what he needs for his treatment and his care. And so we tried to style the conditions such that this fence goes away when Mr. Severe no longer lives in the home.
so
That's actually not your condition that's on here, though. It's a technicality, that's not the condition.
So the question that I have, which I think Mr. Deeds is probably going to get to, let's say the variance and homeowners association, the variance gets approved, the homeowners association approves it, the fence goes up. We have measures in place to monitor the fence permit, record it with the county, and then the property transfers 12 months from now. Then who is responsible for coming out? Is it the current homeowner? Is it the city to bring the fence down and repair the land and those sorts of things? Have we thought that through?
I mean, yeah, it is not the city. The city's not going to come on the property. It is going to be a condition of, whoever buys that home is going to know through the recording that the fence permit is not valid. It needs to be removed prior to purchasing, which is sort of the key of recording it.
Okay.
It's a fair question.
And is it only relevant at sale? What about the death or the facility institutionalization of the homeowner?
I would be fine to amend that condition on that. You change it to when Mr. Spear no longer lives in the home. The problem with that and why we didn't style it that way is that one is hard to know.
Hard to monitor.
Yeah, that's, the transfer is one thing, the is he there or is he not is a little more difficult.
Okay. Can the applicant state any further comments?
If you have any further questions for her, yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody have any further questions for the applicant? If there's anything you wish to add, ma'am, just very quickly.
I was just going to simply say that there isn't anything in our HOA that has any accommodations for anybody with disabilities.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the conditions that staff has in their recommendation, I believe, number 3, so I would like to simply put with homeowners association approval, but I think number 3 is saying that, right, Jesse?
Yes, 3 is basically saying that while the city may grant this, that doesn't remove the obligation of the homeowner to go get HOA approval.
Okay. So there's 2 steps. Or step 1.
And is there any, yeah, any interest or value in changing one?
I think we could, absolutely. It's probably something that staff would have to.
The thing is, yeah, who's going to enforce it?
Yes.
Right. So, but it's up to us, and our main means is by transfer, but
Right.
if it's otherwise, at least it's there, right?
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Hang on, sir. We're done. Thank you. All right, any further discussion before we have a motion? All right, I'll need a motion, please.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve variance VA-26-011
With the conditions?
with the adjusted, thank you, with the adjusted conditional number 1 to add the applicant vacating the premises or no longer living there, whichever is a better legal language.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Gooden.
Okay, so with all 4 conditions, with the addition to number 1, that adding the language that the applicant no longer resides at that residence. And that was second by Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Just that I think in this particular one, it's worth reiterating that the challenge for planning and zoning is we're not enforcers of deed restrictions. And I live in an HOA where we've had a few challenges of our own, and it puts a lot of that weight of enforcement on the HOA.
And as another member of an HOA, I would agree.
Yes.
And I think we're also limited by federal law.
Interpretation
This
of federal
commission,
law.
this commission.
Yeah, unfortunately, absolutely right.
Any further discussion?
Right.
Yep. Roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Ms. Gooden,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes. All right, so VA 26011 has been approved by this commission with the conditions noted herein. Now, turn it over to staff for our next application.
The next application on tonight's agenda is, apologies, somehow I got on the wrong agenda, is variance application VA 26-012. The address of the property is 62770 Bowen Road. The applicant is requesting approval, here we go, from sign variance, chapter 1189.07A5, to allow for a wall sign to be mounted less than 8 feet from grade. The subject property is recently developed, occupied by Oxford Automotive, an automotive repair facility, and the former kind of Reichert Vanland site there in the corner of US 33 and Bowen Road. This application, this property was recently rezoned to limited manufacturing based off of an adjacent tenant on the same parcel, working with the owner earlier this year. The applicant is requesting approval to install some wall signs on the front of the building. 2 variances for tonight's discussion. This first one is for a wall sign that is less than 8 feet from grade, which is a requirement from chapter 1189.07A5 of the zoning code, which states no part of any wall sign shall be less than 8 feet above the sidewalk or ground level.
Mr. Moore, is your microphone on? It's kind of hard to.
Maybe
Okay.
I'll try to
Yeah, thanks.
look this way. The sign in question is up on the screen. The applicant sign company put this graphic together showing, based off of the proposed scale and size of the sign, how they would have to move it vertically up on the wall to get it to be at least 8 feet from ground level, putting the height of the sign over the roof level itself. When looking at the applicant's request for approval and analyzing the criteria for approval, staff found that special circumstances or conditions do not exist for the subject building. The applicant has clearly identified they have, in the next application, room on the same elevation to place a wall sign, just not at the scale proposed or with the proposed orientation. Specifically, if you look at the graphic on the left, it's part of their logoing that is creating the hurdle. With the literal interpretation of the zoning code, the applicant would not be deprived of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district. The minimum sign mounting height regulations are to provide a clear obstruction-free zone from the sign to ground level. This free zone is not only for pedestrians, it's for automobiles, for other kind of incidentals. In this case, the sign is also proposed to be electrically connected to the rest of the building, so this will be a live sign. When looking at the special conditions and circumstances, the applicant has provided only keeping the proposed sign as designed, and as a result, these special circumstances and conditions are direct action from the applicant. Granting this variance would permit a portion of the internally illuminated wrench, really this area below the red line, to be located below the minimum height permitted from grade, and that granting this variance would have the opportunity to adversely affect the public health and safety. The applicant in this application did not provide any details for the profile of that sign cabinet. They have a graphic here showing that it's going to be meeting all of our electrical requirements for an internal shutoff, but really this number one dimension has not been provided anywhere throughout the plans. A concern again from staff is this sign is located along the main drive aisle of the building. Whether that sign sticks out an inch, 8 inches, 10 inches could highly impact the maneuverability. Their site plan shows there is parking along this side of the building and the fence, again opening up the drive aisle to only be tight against the building itself. Granting this variance does not put the property to any better economic use or put the permitted use that is otherwise not permitted. As the staff is recommending VA 26012 be denied as presented. The sign placement along the drive aisle at the proposed height creates a safety concern for both motor vehicle and pedestrians accessing the commercial business.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Was there any conversation with the applicant about changing the dimensions of the sign to fit above the grade line in terms of, so it's not sticking off the top of the building?
I mean, they could, yeah. It just-
Directly, no, but when looking at all kind of signage categories, this variance request was made apparent to the applicant when they first applied for it. There had been some suggestions on how to kind of move the signage to match what other facilities have done, taking up tenant space. Staff went back and looked at all the tenants that have had sign permits that have ever occupied this building. There's only been one other sign in this approximate area, and it was a metal blade sign for a motorcycle mechanic back in mid-2000s, if anybody remembers that. That sign did meet our height requirements. Everything else has kind of been positioned to where the next sign variance application will show above the storefront.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Anything you wish to add on this one?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Caleb Moore with Moore Signs. We are the sign contractor working for Oxford Auto. A couple points I wanted to add. The concern being the sign protrudes from the wall. That would be at a maximum of 3 inches. And it will be, if you look at this graphic, to the right of the graphic, to the right of the right gutter is a chain link fence that encloses the rear of the property, so no vehicles will be driving within anywhere near the sign. The overhead that you displayed earlier shows previous parking from the RV dealership that used to be there. That parking also, I don't believe that parking will be in use either. All pedestrian traffic for this location will be entering through the front of the building, which is to the northwest, and no pedestrian traffic would have the need to go beyond the sign for any reason. as the rear of the property is devoted just to the mechanics that work there.
So,
In regards to the,
yeah, go.
In regards to the design of the sign, the wrench and automotive portion, as you can see, is nearly 50% of the overall graphic. This is a branding that is, consistent with the other locations across the city, Central Ohio, and it is important to add context to the word context to the word Oxford by utilizing the word automotive, and the wrench is very much important to add context to their building. We'll get into this in the other variants as well, but one of the important aspects specific to this location we found is the adjacent property to the southeast is being utilized by a utility truck, bucket truck company, and the concern of the owner is that this may not come across as a everyday car mechanic, rather it might look like a utility truck mechanic, and they wanted to make sure they're very adamant about maintaining their brand for this particular sign and for the other variants as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So you said, Mr. Moore, Mr. Moore, you said that it'll come off the building about 3 inches.
Standard channel letter extrusion is 3 inches. It would be no more than 5 inches. This is all going to be deemed by the fabricator. We are not the fabricator. We subcontract that to a wholesaler. The size of the sign was to a point where we felt the need to go a little bit above and beyond on the strength, integrity of the cabinet itself, because there's so many bends and curves to it that we kind of went a little bit more than the standard 3 inches, and we wanted to weld it and make sure it was well built. So there may be some variation between that 3 and 5, but it will not be more than 5 inches.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Moore, Andrew, do we have a image of the south elevation that faces US 33, or a rendering from the original site plan?
Yeah, I was trying to pull that up from when you guys looked at it back in December. So this is a photograph of the building here, the entire south elevation. This is the area in question for the sign placement to be below 8 feet in height from the base. And then, again, the site plan, this is how the parking lot was restriped for the business. There is a 18-foot drive aisle, a one-way drive aisle between the building. The chain link fence is actually back this way a little further, with angled parking along that entire chain link fence side. So, and that's what created some of the concerns for the height and the placement.
And this is a technicality, and if you don't know, that's okay, but what percentage of the sign is below the grade as proposed?
I think the other Mr. Moore could probably answer that a little better, but
It appears to be
from my end, you
about
have some-
1/3.
So,
Yeah.
A chunk
So
of
the
the
very
wrench.
bottom of that wrench is roughly, is that 62 inches off?
5 feet.
That's what that's, okay, I can't read it. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, so assuming that is 100% scale, if you dropped it to 90% scale or 80% scale, wouldn't it fit?
We tried reducing the size to get it fully above the 8 feet, and when you view it from the perspective of Route 33, it becomes ineffective, and more so it becomes a hazard because people are trying to read something they can't read as they're driving down 33. I'm in the business of signs. Bigger is always going to be better, but there is real reason for having larger and easier to read when it comes to highways such as Route 33.
I guess just to ask the next question, the graphic here shows it's dropped down a bit. If you were to push it clear up to its maximum height, what's the leftover size? It's about 6 inches.
Yeah, so if we put the top of the D, which seems to be the highest point of that logo, and we butted it up against the gutter, we may get to where only the bottom part of the wrench would be there, be above, across that line. We tried shrinking it down. It felt it was a little bit too much to shrink that far.
Yep.
If we could do that, you could argue that it just kind of looks silly being tucked up so close to the top of the building. So aesthetically, it's not very pleasing.
I would think you'd want it taller, because driving on 33, you know, you have to look over the fence, the car is existing. So
Sure.
I think higher up would be better.
I don't disagree.
I know it's more work, but almost like creating some kind of a, what do you call them?
Parapet.
Parapet, thank you. Doing that across the top will get you additional height, and it keeps it, it solves the problems too.
I noticed that too, because there's a parapet on the left side. I don't know what that roof is, if that's a gutter, or, you know, what exactly is there to be built on.
That is a gutter system. It is a flat roof. There's not much more than a few inch drop. Behind that, I believe it's a rubberized roof. There would be significant construction costs to get that above that. As a sign installer, I love parapet walls. It does just that. Unfortunately, this building just wasn't built for such a thing. This building is old enough that it predate 33 at that point, or at least the size that it is now.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? All right, thank you. All right, so this is a variance as well, so I'll open it up for public hearing if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this application. All right.
Seeing none, I move to close public hearing.
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
So if the applicant's open to moving that sign up to bring it within 8 feet from the grade, do we make that a condition, or do we vote on,
I would just note, based off of the rendering that was provided, you know, not taking any consideration on the accuracy of the scale, I did take this size and try to throw it up, kind of what the applicant was showing here before they sent me this graphic. And getting the base of this wrench to be above that 8-foot kind of tall mark does, you know, require reducing the scale kind of in every direction. I would say that, you know, from my end, the discussion isn't about, and this kind of gets support in the next application, is not so much as the amount of signage on that elevation. It's just the safe clearance from the base of the sign to grade, just given where it's at in the access drive of the building. The sign itself, as the applicant noted, does have their kind of logo in it. However, you know, just taking a look at this graphic here, if it was not a logo, you know, of the sign, they could fit kind of all of the same information at the exact same scale. And so that was part of staff's challenge in reviewing this, is the request is based off of a very specific design at a very specific size, not its content. It's based off of, you know, the idealized sign that the applicant is proposing.
all right, so rather than placing a condition, we could potentially vote how this application and staff recommendation is laid out, and depending on how the vote goes, the applicant could work with staff on bringing it, if the variance does not pass, they could bring it up and maybe change the scale.
I think they
As
could
a-
change the scale, they could bring it up, they could change the orientation of the lettering, like, there's a lot of solutions, I think, that exist here, and my next presentation kind of covers that in terms of square footage on the elevation itself.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay.
Ask the applicant if they still wish to proceed.
So, yes, so do you wish for us to vote on this application the way it's presented? Yeah.
So, if I'm hearing correctly, the staff recommends that we somehow alter the logo or reduce the size to make it above the 8 feet, which would null and void this variance application. The weird part about that is if I do that, that also null and voids the need for the other variance as well. So that's just something I wanted to point out. We are only asking for the second variance, which we'll get to, because we were requesting only 22.5 square feet more than what zoning allows. So reducing the size of this logo now as a condition of this variance may null and void the other variance request. If I have that correctly, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, please.
And does that affect anything in this decision-making here?
So I guess staff hears what you're suggesting, but that's not staff's interpretation of the request. This request is for a sign that's less than 8 feet from grade. The next request is for a total of 188 square feet of signage on the elevation, when 160 is permitted. Staff is still in support of additional 22 square foot, however you get it. Whether or not, this sign gets approved or denied, or, you could take this square footage you have here and manipulate it to still keep the other sign and get this one to fit. If you reduce the other sign, remove the other sign, and make this one stretch out longer across the whole south elevation, that's not the concern. The concern is from grade, but increasing the amount of square footage on the elevation to the 22 square feet above is still supported by staff.
Okay.
So I agree. I was just more or less pointing out that the nature of those, how they're connected to that extent. So
Yeah, I
I'm cool with
appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve VA-26-012. Yeah, no additional conditions.
I'll second that. All right, so motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by the chair. Any further discussion on this one? All right, roll call?
Mr. Donahue?
No.
Ms. Gooden?
No.
Mr. Deeds? No. Mr. Cosgrove?
No.
All right, so VA 26012 is not approved.
The next application, VA 26013, same address, 6270 Bowen Road. This variance request is from Chapter 1189.07A3 to allow for additional wall signage on the south elevation. The applicant has proposed here two signage locations on the south elevation. The two signs are up on the graphic up on the screen. On the left-hand side, the applicant is proposing a sign at 47.5 square feet that states "We Fix Cars." I think the applicant explained it clearly in the last application. They want to differentiate themselves from their neighbor on this adjoining parcel. That they are not working on their equipment; they're doing their own differentiating services. On the right-hand side, as discussed in the last application, they want to have a second sign that is a branding identification for the name of the business. The applicant has noted in their application here that this elevation is approximately 160 linear feet. The zoning code would permit signage on that elevation of 160 square feet. The applicant is requesting for an additional 22 square feet beyond that. Again, from staff's review, the makeup of that additional 22 square feet doesn't make an impact for it being a name of the business, what services are offered. However, this is how the applicant has presented the information this evening. When looking at the criteria for variance approval, again, staff notes that there are special circumstances and conditions that are not applicable to all their lands or structures in the same zoning district. The applicant has provided information that shows that this the sign configuration itself is appropriate for the building scale, the US 33 traffic, the parking that's located in front of it, the fencing, kind of other elements that having this additional signage is warranted. When looking at the literal interpretation of the zoning code, would not deprive applicants of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. Again, this parcel is unique It was recently rezoned to limited manufacturing, has a commercial auto repair business as the primary user on the property. The user on the back end of the building is kind of secondary to this use. They don't have any actual on-site employment. They have vehicles that are coming and going, but no commercial traffic like this primary kind of tenant is. Also speaking to New River Electric in the back, they don't want any signage, they don't have any need for signage. While that may change with any future kind of tenant space for that rear part of the property, it does make an impact for tonight's discussion. For special conditions and circumstances, they do not result from actions of the applicant. The site was pre-developed when Oxford Automotive leased the space last year. Granting this variance would permit an excess of 22.3 square feet of signage on the south elevation that's not otherwise permitted on the subject parcel. Special RV received a variance for additional signage on the annex building to the back. Just taking a look at other considerations for signage relief in the past, this one seemed to be appropriately scaled. Granting this variance would not adversely affect the public. The additional signage, I think as the applicant noted in the last application, aids in wayfinding for vehicles traveling along US 33 heading east and westbound. There is currently a westbound right turn lane off of US 33. Again, probably important to know to slow down to get in that turn lane to see, because this building, I believe, is already in the start of the turn lane as you get to it. Granting this variance does not permit the property to a better economic use and does not permit a use that is otherwise not permitted. So staff is recommending that VA 26013 be approved as presented, and that the additional square footage of signage along US 33 will help clearly identify the business use and services provided. Again, this is for an additional 22.3 square feet regardless of how they configure it, based off kind of how we ended the last discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for staff? Anything the applicant wishes to add on this one?
Sure. Thank you. Again, with the notion of differentiating the other parcel next door, We Fix Cars just happens to be a tagline or brand name of Oxford Auto. It's on every other one of their locations in Johnstown, Westerville, Powell, and Sunbury. That's kind of their thing. We Fix Cars, that's what their tagline is. So it just kind of is kind of handy that it works well for this situation with their neighbors. So I just wanted to add that it's not something that we came up with just to make this issue, help with this issue. It's literally a part of their branding. So just wanted to add that in too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant on this application? All right. It's a variance. I'll open it up for public hearing.
Seeing none, I move to close.
Second. Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
I guess just real quick for Andrew, I do know we've done extra sizes on signs before. This one looks like it's about 13%. Do you have any recollection what some of the others run percentage-wise?
It widely varies, I think, from, if it's a out parcel to a anchor tenant in a shopping plaza.
Okay.
So in this kind of instance, like I said, this property is a little unique in that it's now zoned limited manufacturing with a primary commercial user. Typically, the LM zoning districts that have solely industrial user bases don't request a lot of signage. They just don't have the traffic for it, so they don't need it.
Sure.
So it makes this kind of a unique circumstance.
Okay.
Is there a pole or monument sign on this one?
The property used to have a pole sign. I don't believe it's no longer present.
Okay.
All right. Ready to motion?
Well, Mr. Chair, we'll keep it up and we'll say, I'll make a motion to approve VA-26-013.
Second.
All right, motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. Gooden. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. And Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, so VA 26013 is approved.
The next application, VA 26014, the location subject property is 6817 Murdoch Court. The request this evening is a variance from Chapter 1181.0 .01 subsection B of the zoning code to place a portion of an in-ground pool within the side yard. This property is zoned planned residential district. It's located in Ashbrook Village, Section 6. All surrounding properties, the subject parcel, are zoned PRD, containing single-family dwellings in Ashbrook Village. The applicant, their parcel, and this is just some background information for the request, staff found it helpful. Let's skip ahead here a little bit. I lied, we're gonna stay here. The parcel itself is rather large for that neighborhood. We're at almost 16, just shy of 16,000 square foot lot on the cul-de-sac of Murdoch Court in Ashbrook Village. The applicant is requesting approval to install a new 16-foot by 35-foot in-ground pool on the subject property. Those dimensions are just for the water's edge of the pool. They do not include any of the concrete surround of the pool, which you'll see in some later graphics. Just for kind of a brief exercise, we got a new tool in our office, so I was able to measure lot coverage based off of the scaled survey of the property. The house, I put this in my staff report, the footprint of the home itself is 1,829 square feet. The existing patio is 579 square feet. The proposed pool and patio around the pool is an additional 1,806 square feet. Dividing that by the almost 16,000 square foot lot, we're at 26% lot coverage. This is probably the biggest pool I've ever looked at from a lot coverage standpoint. I've met it, so I thought that was this is a fun fact for the commission here this evening. The applicant is requesting a variance from chapter 1181.01, which requires swimming pools to be located completely within the rear yard and completely behind the principal structure. The applicant's plans here, this graphic shows kind of their initial attempt to have the pool's water completely behind kind of this imaginary line right here. After talking with the applicant over the last several months, they have had numerous concerns with contractors putting in a pool in this location. The applicant kind of put additional information in here for your consideration based off the feedback from those contractors, but the southeast corner of their property is higher than kind of the northwest corner, kind of opposite of the parcel. So as you go towards the backyard and that corner of the pool is going, the yard goes uphill several feet. These graphics up on the screen kind of show that visually. This has created a concern from the contractors looking to put in a in-ground fiberglass pool, noting with the uplift of the kind of hydrology of the soil and the water and the ground, in addition to trying to find an appropriate place to outlet the pool, has created some issues from the pool being located completely behind the residential dwelling. When looking at those kind of categories, that does create a special circumstance or condition that is not applicable to all other lands and structures in the same zoning district. The applicant has provided information that shows this rear yard does slope upward as you move towards the southeast corner of the lot. The existing grades for the lots support relief for the strict rear yard placement and for the safe installation of the in-ground pool. When looking at kind of this graphic here to what was code compliant, to what the pool company has provided as a solution, less than 50% of the pool is actually located beyond this line here, in this zone, this side yard area of the property. When looking at the literal interpretation zoning code, would require the applicant to reduce the size of the pool nearly in half to meet setback requirements. While saying what your minimum size of your pool should be to enjoy your property, or looking at other conditions. This lot is also very irregularly shaped. It's in a cul-de-sac that is also a very short cul-de-sac. Looking at kind of some of these conditions in total, this graphic here shows it really well. None of their neighbors to the left of the house, if you're facing it, are on Murdoch Court, and they all have Murdoch Drive addresses. So both neighbors immediately to the left of the house all three neighbors have rear yards only that face this parcel. Unlike, say, this neighbor here, which would have two neighbors that have kind of side yards facing their yard. So from a context perspective, if this wasn't a cul-de-sac, and there was another parallel street here, you'd have two backyards facing each other, so it's not as much indirect conflict with an adjacent neighbor as it would be if it was one lot away. So that, laid into staff's consideration for the recommendation. When looking at these special conditions and circumstances, again, they do not result in the actions of the applicant. Site grades in this section, Asper Village, generally follow natural topography. This is a very unique subdivision, has a lot of grade change throughout it. It's something I think a lot of the neighbors in that community pride and enjoy. And so kind of modify that existing grade on a lot by lot basis becomes a little abnormal rather than working with the existing grades. The applicant, again, has noted kind of in their proposal here, details for their installation still does require a small retaining wall around kind of these three sides of the pool. With talking with the applicant, I don't think I put it in my PowerPoint deck, but they have a graphic in their presentation that shows they're proposing on screening majority of this kind of pool area with additional landscaping to try to help kind of soften the impacts of its placement. And I think the applicant was looking to do that regardless of where it went. So that's just part of the deck I didn't get up on the screen for you guys. So staff is recommending that VA 26014 be approved with the condition the applicant provides a copy of the HOA approval letter during the submittal of the pool permit process. Some of the communities like Ashbrook, Villages of Westchester, where there are items that are not administratively regulated but have HOA approval processes, staff tries to work with those HOAs to make sure that in Ashbrook specifically, they have certain types of fencing that they allow and don't allow. We have found administratively over the years that a homeowner gets approval from staff, doesn't go to the HOA, and then the HOA is trying to chase it. So we try to help Onyx Realty out on that aspect because they have been sharing information with us, which is helpful for our internal processes. So it's kind of a mutual agreement, I guess, for helping that neighborhood out.
Thank you. So I know we've granted variances similar to this, or similar to, for lot size coverage, especially in Westchester the last 12 years I've been doing this. I don't know that we've ever seen one in the side yard, but I do think for this particular property and layout, it's the most reasonable. My question is during the pool permitting process with the city, do we have somebody, in the technical review process or that permitting process that will go out and ensure that the slope and the grade of the natural drainage down that hillside is not impacted by the construction or the placement of the pool? Meaning, in a large storm, there's not a natural impact based on this structure going there.
Really good question. I would say from a site installation perspective, our city inspectors go out and look at the items that are covered under the residential building code for the state of Ohio. Whether or not they kind of look beyond what the RCO requires for topo and drainage, I do not know on the top of my head. But I do know that when looking at the plans prepared by the applicant, they are showing some cut.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 French drains.
Yeah, I don't have the zoomed in version of this, but they're showing a retaining wall, basically this bold outline kind of white line. And then I believe all of this in here, based off of kind of just how they had the hatching done, was to be some kind of graveled area around the perimeter of the pool. This retaining wall itself, I guess just for a frame of reference, if there was no pool, we would have no permit process, for it if it met the RCO standards. So from a stormwater perspective, let me go back here. So this site flows from this direction to this direction here from grades. There is a stormwater catch basin that's along the rear of these lots. I believe this property has a catch basin maybe midpoint here and midpoint here to capture stormwater flow. So from an impact of this pool, just from the grade standpoints, I think it would impact this property owner and not off-site parcels.
Okay. And I just think, I just think it's worth noting in the permitting process. That's all. The other question I had, so are there any restrictions? So I do appreciate that they're going to work with the HOA and put a fence around the pool and the property. I just can't remember in the residential code if we have a limit on the fence to the, I think it's that front line, I always forget the technical term, the build to line or the, from the street and the right of way in terms of where a fence can be.
Yeah, so from the city's code standpoint, you can have, just to kind of make it very blanket and then kind of piecemeal it to where on the property, you can have a fence anywhere on your property. Anywhere from the front of your house towards the street is limited to 3 feet in height and has to be a decorative picket or open style. Anything from, basically this line of the garage here backwards can be a maximum of 6 feet tall. In terms of the HOA approval process, I don't know if they have any differentiators for front yard, side yard. Again, I don't look at that aspect of it. The only thing that, I know from the HOA process is they require a maximum of a 42-inch tall fence unless you have a pool, and then it's bumped up to 48 inches in height. Up until 3 or 4 years ago, it was wood fences only, and I think the HOA has switched it to now allow vinyl fences. Finding a vinyl fence at 42 inches tall is next to impossible, so I don't know if that weighs into their decision to do that or not.
But from our perspective,
But from our
it's more than
perspective,
compliant.
Yeah, from our perspective, it meets it. The only thing that I don't know with this particular application is if they'd allow this all to be 48 inches in height, or if they'd restrict the 48 inch to only be around the pool deck. That's why the HOA kind of process is intertwined with this.
Yeah. Okay.
On my end.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Anything the applicant wishes to share that was not covered?
That's me.
Come on up.
Sign in real quick. Hello, my name is Gavin Waits. My wife Shannon Waits. We've been living in this property since 2008. Obviously, it takes many years to be able to afford a pool. Been dealing with Andrew since last summer, probably on his last nerve, but we've tried to accommodate, from the back of the property back. Like he said, we're having multiple issues. People on board, walking away. We were in contract, had a pool ordered, put down a down payment. A week later, they basically said, we're not comfortable doing this. Like you said, unique property. It's a cul-de-sac. It's not your typical where there's a lot of room in the backyard. We have room in the side yard. And then, as you said, the backyard it slopes uphill. And then if you've been in Ashbrook Village, on the left-hand side, there's 4 roads that go up to the water tower. We're in that first pocket, that first little cul-de-sac. So the graphic that you showed with all the contours going down the hill, now there's 3 storm drains, one in the 2410 property, right in the corner, probably 20 feet off the street. There's one right in the corner of the 9392 property that does not collect a lot of rainwater. And then I believe there's another one right in the corner of the 2094, 2407-ish That does collect some of that rainwater, but I guess in terms of our property, we get a lot of water, we get a lot of groundwater. That poses all the issues that everybody that's come out there, we talked to, everything run down the hill. Our side yard directly to the side of the garage, when it rains, it is standing water. So it doesn't go anywhere. High water table, everything comes down the hill and it doesn't necessarily go into the storm drains. Our yard is primarily clay. I didn't know any of this going in, but people don't like to build into clay hillsides because clay will expand when it rains and we have a lot of water. So it complicates issues and risk with putting in a pool structurally. So all these issues, with contractors, we finally found one that said, hey, if we're going to do this, this is our suggestion, which is the Easy Living Poles graphic. Essentially, they're wanting to shift it little over 14 feet into the side yard. To answer some of your other questions, the outline is a fence, which is 8 to 10 feet off the property line, so that will be well off the property line. I don't have the graphic to show. I'm putting in green giants and arborvitaes around the fence line, so in a few years it's going to be totally private. Even the front, I have beds. With the fence being the way it is, even with or without a variance where the pool would be, it's going to look the same from the outside. So the fence is a 4-foot vinyl. It's a Hanover style, so the vertical slats are close together. You're not going to be able to see through unless you're right up to the fence. And then with all the growth that will be planted between the fence and the property line, they're not going to see that anyway. So from the street, and just to give you some distance from the street, it's 70 feet as that's planned right there from the fence to the street. And I do have a approval from the HOA. I've already sent the design. They are good with a 4-foot white vinyl fence. I sent them the style, and they're good with the design going around from the side yard, wrapping around to the back side of the house. So that's kind of our issues. It's been a frustrating process, but the things that this contractor is offering is to eliminate going into the hill. They suggested, as you can see in this graphic, the shallow end will be on the hillside, so that keeps from having to cut into the hill. If you slide it down the 14 feet, the grading is a lot less there. You can see it goes from the 1776 to the back of the property is a 4-foot difference. So the only real place you're going to have to cut into the hill is going to be for the decking itself, which is gravel and concrete. And they're also, to alleviate some of the hydrostatic pressures in the water and the soil that's kind of constant, they're suggesting that they step it up like you would step up onto the deck. I'm guessing that's probably an 8-inch step. That way it makes it easier for the drainage to run off. Now we are utilizing the storm drain, as you can see in the top of the graphic there, the one nearest the street. That, when it rains, that really does nothing. It's not connected to any other storm drains. It goes from that storm drain out to the street and then, wherever that goes. But the retaining wall would be a maximum of 2 feet, so relatively minimal. And then installing Versalock, so we're not going to have issues that are going to be interlocked with any of the clay, any of the sediment, any of the hill. But drainage-wise, you're going to have a retaining wall with French draining in the front for the decking runoff, as well as the backside for the hill runoff. And that kind of goes around, connects, goes into a catch basin, and then goes out to the storm drain. So we're trying to alleviate a lot of issues with this pool design that we already have with the lot, the clay, the grading, and a lot of the water issues. So it will, I guess, kill a lot of birds with one stone. That's
Thank you.
kind of it. Thanks.
Any questions for the applicant? All right. So this is a variance, so I'll open it up for public hearing.
Seeing none, I move to close public hearing.
All right, motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, and Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve variance VA-26-014.
Second.
All right, so so just as stated, so they want to, with the HOA approval letter and the permitting process. Okay?
Yes.
All right, so that was made by Mr. Dees, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, and Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, so VA 26014 has been approved.
Good luck.
The next application on tonight's agenda is VA 26015. The address subject property is 7188 Charlton Court. This request is a variance from chapter 80.27.047 of the 1990 zoning code to reduce rear yard setbacks. Again, just as a reminder, frame of reference, Villages of Westchester was planned in the 90s. All the zoning code standards are related to the 90s. This section, the text has not changed from the 90s to today, but just referencing the appropriate kind of title from the 90s was used in this application. The applicant is requesting approval to install a covered rear porch in the rear yard over the existing concrete patio. Again, I talked earlier about that neat tool that we have now that we can take scale drawings. The survey the applicant provided here, we were able to just kind of scale back how far away the existing house sits from the rear property line. There is the original survey from construction of this home did not include that setback measurement. Go figure, it had the front yard and side yard, but no rear yard. So without doing some quick math, measured it off of there. The kind of closest point to the rear property line is at 31 feet 6 inches. The area where the applicant is looking to do the installation, just for frame of reference, is 37 feet 4 1/4 inches. The applicant is requesting approval again to place a screen-in porch in this desired location. The screen-in porch is approximately 14 feet deep, almost 13 feet wide. Again, the applicant notes about 24.3 plus or minus feet from the rear property line. Again, this dimension, when I looked at kind of my paperwork, just for, a frame of reference, I'm at roughly 23.3 feet, so roughly a foot different from what the applicant's proposal shows. When the applicant put together their request for approval, they noted here their criteria for approval in favor for their application. When staff is reviewing it here, I kind of scoured all the Villages of Westchester text, and then there is not more than one variance that has ever been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission for a rear yard setback request for part of the principal structure. There have been several for decks, other kind of accessory structures to the home, but in terms of an addition, onto the home itself, there's only been one other that was approved, and it was a forgiveness application to something that was constructed prior to Planning and Zoning Commission's review. When looking at kind of that criteria here, again, special circumstances or conditions do not exist which are not applicable to other lands or structures in the same zoning district or neighborhood. That 30-foot rear yard setback requirement is for all of the Villages of Westchester residential lots. I looked through all of the 13 phases of the Villages of Westchester. Not one of them require a different setback than the 30 feet. Just for like frame of reference, Ashbrook is 25 feet in certain sections for decks. Some neighborhoods don't have any rear setbacks for like really tiny lots like in Turning Stone. But for all of Villages of Westchester, it's 30 feet. For the literal interpretation of the provisions of zoning code, again, require a 30-foot rear yard setback for the principal structure. Adding a proposed screen porch or any other roof structure would violate the rear yard setback standard for the neighborhood. Again, the existing porch or patio does not violate that, but once you put walls and a roof on it, it becomes an addition, part of the principal structure. Special conditions and circumstances, again, do not exist for a subject property. The request for the screen and porch is a direct result from the applicant. Again, looking at this kind of graphic here, there was a larger home built on a slightly smaller lot. The site plan here shows really that for any kind of rear yard improvements, they're going to be at grade with patios, things at that level. For the granting of the variance, would provide an undue privilege by allowing the structure to sit in the defined rear yard setback of property. Again, there's a little discrepancy how many feet the applicant here has at 24.4 feet away from property line. Staff's measurements has it 23.4, so about 12-inch difference. And that granting this variance does not put the property to a better economic use, or is not solely shown as doing that. And that granting the variance does not permit a use that is otherwise not permitted. A single-family dwelling is a permitted use for the parcel. This rear yard setback doesn't change that use of the property. So staff is recommending that VA 26015 be denied as presented.
So the rear yard setback in all of Westchester is 30 feet.
Correct.
And can you go back to where you have the measurements in there? I just need clarification. So what does the 31.6 illustrate?
So if you see this bump out on the rear of the house here,
Yeah.
that is the distance from that line of the bump out to the property line.
So
And
right
looking
now,
at an aerial here, that may be like a bump out for a chimney maybe, or a bay window. It doesn't look really substantial for size.
so are we saying right now that it already doesn't meet the rear yard setback because of
No,
that?
it does. So the house is 31, at the closest point is 31 and a half feet away.
Okay.
30 feet is the minimum.
Okay. And what would it be with the proposed accessory or addition?
So the applicant's plans show that it'd be 24.3 feet away. My measurements, just based off of 37.4 minus 14, puts it at 23.3.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
If it's a different structure, a pergola, any of those types, does that require variance as well? Or is it just a permanent structure?
So basically, if it's something that is attached to the principal dwelling, so if it was a deck, an attached deck, I think our building official may even require any decks that close be considered attached. Not related, but just kind of frame of reference. If it was a pergola, or if it was a open-ended pavilion that didn't have these walls, because it's physically attached to this dwelling, it's part of the principal dwelling. One of the concerns I shared with the contractor early on is a screen and porch is a couple windows away from being an addition on the house. There's not a whole lot separating you from making that kind of a fully enclosed space. And suggested that they looked at kind of other, options if they were to pursue a variance request, to not make it so easy to make it a fully enclosed space, which has, I think, a bigger impact on the variance request than if it was like an open air structure. But throughout all of Villages of Westchester, there has not been any for enclosed structures.
I feel like we have a theme here tonight. So this too would require HOA approval, correct?
this would require HOA approval, yes.
But since staff is recommending it be denied, we don't have that in here anyway.
I'm unaware of HOA's review setbacks, to be
Okay.
completely honest.
Okay.
I think they look at it from like, does their rules permit this type of structure and does it meet the aesthetic value? I know Westchester is very particular on what type of asphalt shingles you can have on additions, but in terms of setbacks, I have no idea.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Anything you wish to add?
Yeah, I'm Megan. I had received the agenda and kind of went back, talked to the contractor that's doing it, which is Ohio Exteriors. And we actually, there's more than 6, but 6 addresses that have structures in their backyard that are in the setback line of 30 feet. And I can give these to Andrew just to look up and stuff too. One of them is actually right across the street from us, and it is a swimming pool that is located at 7181 Charlton Court. They are 15.5 feet in the setback line. There's one on Meridian Court. So I wanted to just kind of bring that up because I didn't bring that up initially in the application process. Another comment is we moved there last year. The original owners owned it since '99, and it's not necessarily a concrete pad. It's bricks that someone put in several years ago. So what we're doing is, of course, wanting to add a screened-in porch, but it's also going to improve kind of the aesthetics of what it looks like outside compared to what it is now. And I know walls is a concern, but I was told as long as it is a screen, it's not going to block someone's view because it's not a solid wall. Our neighbors that live right beside us have a screened-in porch, and they put it in, I think he said, roughly 15, 18 years ago. So it's not in the setback line, but they do have almost the exact same thing that we want to do.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? So have you worked with staff or your contractor, Ohio Exteriors, on potentially, is there a way to bring it so we don't have the setback issue in terms of their product? And
It would make it, like if we made it smaller, basically what we're doing where this brick is, which do you want to see a picture of it?
Sure.
This is, I have a couple of copies. That's right, it's on the next page. This is what it is currently,
Okay.
and then this is what we want to do. But you guys are looking at this. But where it is now, where the brick is, we're basically just coming out the brick. So I'm assuming it's probably, the mulch beds and the brick is probably already in the setback because there's brick, then the prior people added some type of stone and mulch. So we're basically just covering that, or wanting to just cover that, which is where it is. So if we did make it smaller or, go smaller, it's going to look weird on the back of our house because it comes directly off the kitchen. If it came smaller, it would basically look mismatched compared to the other side of the house.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the applicant?
And there's a note, I should have said this, so we did talk to all of our neighbors. Everybody's fine, but one of our neighbors wrote a note in here too. He couldn't be here tonight, but he wrote a note. So I stuck that in there.
And so to be clear, Mr. Moore, the variance is for the setback of the structure that's the closest to the rear yard setback. So right now, it's the chimney bump out on the current structure. It's not any landscaping or any sort of concrete pad. That's lot coverage, that's different.
Correct, yeah, the concrete patio, landscaping, fencing, that's all permitted to be in the rear yard setback. The setback itself is for the dwelling.
And so, the di-
So
and,
pools aren't part of the dwelling.
Correct.
Sheds aren't part of a dwelling. It's really the home itself, and this is an addition onto the home.
The other thing, I think you said, like, finishing it out, making it like a four-season room, they would have to come back and do that. Like, that's not something, this is basically set up as, there's not any heat or or utilities or ductwork or anything ran.
okay.
I mean, we did want to do that, but, money-wise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Mr. Donahue, just to answer your question earlier, I originally started down the path with the contractor months ago about trying to be compliant, and they informed me that basically to be within the, outside of the 30-foot rear yard setback, the screen porch should be 6.5 feet deep. So it's not usable at that scale. And so that's where the, I assume the discussion ended, and then the variance application got filed for this month's agenda.
Okay. Thank you. So before any further discussion, I'll open it up for public hearing. If there's anybody here from the public that wishes to speak on this variance request.
Seeing none, I move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
So my comment would be here, I think, there's a couple things, it's a separate conversation from lot coverage on a pool or concrete patio or those types of things where it gets over 30% and some of the things we've seen in the past. It's also, it's a structure because it's connected to the current dwelling, and I think we're about 7 feet-ish over, thus the variance request. Personally, I think it's a nice improvement to the property, and it's not encroaching on any easements or anything like that, but I do respect, what the deed restrictions are and kind of what the setbacks are as well. And without, a lot of things in the city of Canal Winchester are complaint driven, so, it's hard, staff can't go out and police if there are other setback encroachments within Westchester or anywhere else that might have these types of restrictions. And we did approve one after the fact within the last, 3 or 4 years, but that's the only one we've approved in Westchester. That was a situation where he did all the work and then asked for our approval later. And so I appreciate following the process and doing it the right way. So that's just my opinion on it. I have no further comments.
But that was not a rear setback issue, was it?
I believe it was.
It encroached in the 30-foot? No.
Yeah, so that particular application that I was discussing, they came before you because they were further exceeding lot coverage.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But part of the prior projects that took place over the past decade also encroached setbacks. But that was not the specifics of kind of what was being discussed that evening. That was the only mention I could find of it in our database that goes back 25 years.
Okay.
So it did encroach in the 30-foot?
There was an addition that was put on that particular house 20-plus years ago that did encroach the rear yard setback. It did not back up to any other residential dwellings, though. It backed up to, what is that, 30-acre religious use parcel.
True.
All right, we'll need a motion.
Is it also worth asking if they wish to defer?
So
Till there's more.
I did say at the beginning of the meeting, so per city statute, there's unfortunately only 4 of us here this evening. So 4 positive votes to carry any motion. So we can vote, which is our intent, or if you wish to table and work through staff or come next month to a hopefully fuller commission, we can do that as well.
So if we vote, or if everyone votes and it's a no, then what would the next step be?
Could you come back to the microphone so I can just pick that up for the recording, please?
I said if everybody votes and it doesn't get approved, then like what's the next part of the process? That'd be nice.
I think it's on wheels. If the Planning and Zoning Commission denies the variance as presented, you have either the kind of option to change your plans to either request some different type of relief or become code compliant, or you can take the plans as denied and appeal that decision from the Planning and Zoning Commission to City Council.
Okay.
And then City Council will set a public hearing that will be heard within the next 60 days to present the appeal on why you think the Planning and Zoning Commission erred on their decision.
Okay. I think vote.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we approve VA 26-015.
Second?
Deeds. All right, so motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Deeds. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
No.
Mr. Deeds? No. Mr. Paulsgrove?
No.
All right, so VA 26015 is not approved.
The next application on tonight's agenda is conditional use 26002. The address of the property is 229 Winchester Cemetery Road. The request this evening is a conditional use approval from Chapter 1167.03 subsection G to permit a commercial kennel on the subject property for a cat rescue. I'm going to try to pick up speed here. We've been here for an hour and 42, so Ellen, if I missed something, feel free to correct me. The address of the subject property is this parcel where 229 Winchester Cemetery Road is located. The request for the conditional use limits I've outlined in blue just for clarity, just to show that it's not the full property, full building. It's only a portion of the tenancy of the building itself. The applicant is requesting approval from requesting conditional use approval from our general commercial standards to allow for a commercial kennel to operate in this tenant space outlined in green on the screen. The subject property itself is 1.63 acres. The building is a multi-tenant building that is broken down into 3 tenant spaces. Ireland Salon, kind of highlighted in pink, is approximately 3,800 square feet. Precision Garage Door in the middle is approximately 1,700 square feet. And then the green box where the applicant is looking to locate is approximately 5,700 square feet. It is formerly the Winchester Veterinary Clinic. They haven't operated in that facility since 2019, 2020 timeframe, when they moved to Thrush Drive. The applicant, and this is where I'm going to try to be very brief, they have plans on operating a boutique-style nonprofit thrift store that also has an indoor cat adoption and care area associated with the organization's rescue program, end quotes. The applicant notes that the space will be clearly separated on the interior of the building for the 2 components. Based off the floor plan that was provided, I apologize, it's kind of washed out to see on the screen here. Roughly 50% of the building is for the kenneling, the remainder is the retail component. The retail component is kind of the portion of this application we're not discussing tonight because it's a permitted use. It doesn't have any bearing on the conditional use. However, I've put as much information in my staff report to show the relationship between the two. So if you see there's a lot more in the applicant's submittal, that's not in my staff report. That was done on purpose to kind of focus your attention on the kenneling component tonight. The applicant does list in their application the types of services offered and rooms associated for the cat rescue. They have a quarantine area, an intake area, internal temporary housing, separated litter areas, adoption area, and an office. The applicant's details show that a maximum of 12 cats will be housed in the free roaming adoption area, and within the intake quarantine zone, they will have capacity for an additional 25 cats. When looking at the applicant's contents for hours of operation days of the week, they're requesting to be open Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. For the public, animal care will occur every day, regardless of the retail component being open. When talking with the applicant, the two uses are being combined together because the retail component is going to financially support the adoption component. The applicant did clarify for me on the phone that throughout their application, they talk about limited veterinary services. That is not taking place in this building. They will take the cats elsewhere to get that service done and then bring them back into the quarantine zone. The applicant noted that as part of their practice, the animals are quarantined one by one in separated structures in the quarantine zone until they can integrate to the public room where a maximum of 12 cats will be put in there at a time. So from a public perspective, I believe the intent is you'll be able to adopt out of the room of 12 where they're ready, and then the intake quarantine zone are kind of the staging areas for the adoption area. In terms of the criteria for approval, again, the applicant did, I think, a really good job here just noting really some of what they thought was kind of their own self hurdles in specific relationship to potential nuisances through the litter boxes. They talk about daily maintenance, sanitation practices, odor control procedures, regular waste removal. One of the items that's not on the screen that I thought was helpful for the commission was for the thrift component. Again, while that's not being reviewed, some of the other thrifting larger businesses like Goodwill in the city, they have an outdoor drop-off area, sorting component. The applicant noted all that will take place inside. As again, while it's not specifically related, has noted that all of that will be internal to the building. So within the warehouse space, it's kind of to the rear of the space. You can kind of see that here. Again, this is probably more than a third of that thrifting component is kind of back of house stuff. Staff reviewed the conditional use criteria, found this use is unique for the general commercial zoning district. The applicant is requesting to occupy an existing building. They're not requesting to make any exterior alterations. The combined uses is compatible for the district. The thrift store alone is a permitted use with the limited kenneling components and the limited types of animals that are going to be kenneled. It reduces a lot of the outside nuisance factors, such as having pet relief areas outdoors, run areas for dogs, things of that nature. I think cats make a little less noise than dogs, so just something else to consider from the public perspective. The proposed use, again, is compatible for the existing site. The site used to be a veterinary clinic. Having animals in the spaces, in the building's kind of past history. So promoting that type of service in the future is compatible in that nature. And the proposed interior occupancy of the building would not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of any natural, historic, or scenic features. So staff is recommending that CU 26002 be approved as presented.
Questions for staff?
I guess I'm curious, why does this require variance?
So it's a conditional use request, not variance for relief. A conditional use are uses in our zoning districts that are noted to require additional level of review based off of the contents for the application. Commercial kenneling is a conditional use in the general commercial zoning district, basically to review what type of kenneling, what the limits of it are, self-imposed limits from the applicant, location of the property, impacts to surrounding property owners, utilities, services, etc. So in this case, because they are kenneling cats as a business, And our code does not differentiate between temporary housing, like you're on vacation, or for sale, or adoption animals. This was categorized under the kenneling component.
So this could be a question for the applicant, but I'll ask you first. Do we know how interdependent the conditional use, so the cat rescue and the thrifting business are on each other? I mean, is there a retail business no matter what, and then this is secondary, or is this, they're presenting it?
That, I
As
think,
one
is a good
business.
question for the applicant, maybe to answer on terms of, the relationship between the two. But from my understanding, one supports the other. I think the support end is the kenneling end. I think if that kenneling end, if that kenneling service was no longer provided, like I said, the thrift store is automatically permitted use. The building could automatically, change its occupancy type to allow for that to continue, and it would not require any more of the Planning and Zoning Commission's review. On the adverse side, if the applicant wanted to increase the kenneling component to have more square footage, more cats, more hours, that would have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. And then do we know if there will be an employee on site 24 hours a day or after hours?
So I did ask the applicant if they had any on-site residency for the animals. The response I received was no. She did add additional clarity in this kind of documentation, saying that the cats will receive daily care, and the applicant noted she's a resident of the community that has quick access to go to the site. It's also noted that all of the cat areas are going to be supervised with video camera monitoring that can be pulled up on their cell phone at any time to check in on the animals.
Okay. And then if this conditional use is granted, is it similar to the variance process where it follows the property? Meaning, if they're in business for 2 years and...
No, so a conditional use is separate from a variance. So a variance is saying that you need relief from our code because your property cannot function the same as other properties without that relief. A conditional use is saying that your use you are requesting is sensitive in nature, and it is tied to that type of business and how it's operated.
So
our code further requires that if the applicant sold the business to a partner, that partner has to sign a document saying they agree to the conditions of approval from the original approval within 30 days of closing or transfer of the property. If they do not, then they have to apply for a new conditional use.
Okay,
And
so...
staff also, sorry,
keep going.
Staff also has the ability through the transfer process to impose extra conditions based off of whatever evaluations provided on the transfer.
Okay, so if the conditional use is granted to permit a commercial kennel for a cat rescue, that's pretty specific. So if in 2 years, let's say they want to do veterinary services, or they just want to have a retail business there, somebody else does, and then down the road they want to do something similar, they would have to come get a new conditional use based on
Correct.
that specific specialty.
Yeah, changing the application contents has to come back, expanding or transfer of services has to come back.
Okay. And one last question, and this could be for the applicant as well, or they can address it, but do we know is there a limitation on hours of operation based on this conditional use in terms of kenneling animals in our code?
Does our code limit hours? No. The conditional use process sets, I like to tell people you're setting your own limitations to your business. So this application, the applicant has noted they are going to be open Wednesday through Sunday to the public, 11 to 8 p.m. The animals will have 7-day-of-the-week care, but the business itself will be open to the public during that limited window.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that. Any other questions for staff? All right, is the applicant present? Is there anything you wish to add, or do you have a presentation?
Really fast, because I know it's late and everybody wants to go home. So I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that the area for the cats is going to be completely separate from the retail area. The cats will not be roaming around the shoppers. We've done a lot of research and gone to visit the Cat Welfare Association, Colony Cats, the Humane Society, gotten best practices from all those. And so we've taken everything we've learned from there for the cleanliness, the litter boxes, all that, to make sure that we're keeping that area clean and separate. And the retail is not going to be, when you say thrift, I don't want you to think of like bins of stuff. It's going to be a curated thrift. My daughter will be running it. She's been a merchandiser for TJ Maxx for 2 years, so she's all about making things pretty. So making things pretty for the community to recycle goods while that's benefiting taking care of cats. And we've already established a relationship with a local vet who's going to be working with us on the medical care.
Questions. I'm a dog owner, so bear with me.
I have both.
The word kenneling keeps coming up. You're not boarding cats.
No.
You're taking
When we
rescue
take
cats
re-
and trying to adopt them out.
Yes, we will be the owners of the cats until we find an adoptive family. So we're not going to be boarding for other people.
And the goal of the store is to support that.
Yes,
The vet bills, the food, everything you need
Yes.
to keep those cats alive. until
yes,
you
so
can
that
get
we're
them
not
adopted.
depending solely on financial donations. And I work for Chase, been there 32 years, so I have a huge network of people who are ready to donate stuff to help the cats survive. So we have people ready to donate all across central Ohio. So it's, everybody wants to save the animals. I would love to save the dogs too one day, but got to start somewhere.
Thank you.
So I have a question I think staff hit on. So when we say thrift and you're selling goods to support the business, I get all that. So where, if I have stuff that I want to donate to your business, is that, did we say that that was an internal, or there's not
There won't be a box outside.
outside box where?
No. We'll have specific hours where
Okay.
people can bring donations.
Okay.
And most of it, we're going to be picking up ourselves.
Okay. All right, thank you. And the retail business will be separate from, like if I want to go see one of the 12 available animals, that's a separate area.
Yes, and it will be completely walled off, and you'll have to be escorted in, and there'll be somebody in there with you. You won't just be in there
Okay.
loose with the cats.
Is that by appointment?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Just from observing other donation spots, there probably will be times when there'll be things left outside after hours.
And we'll go pick them
It
up.
happens, so.
So we'll make sure we have a camera, because it's a big garage door there, and so we can have a camera there and make sure, because we don't want things left outside.
Any other questions for the applicant? Anything else you wish to share, ma'am?
No, but we're excited. Got to take care of the cats and dogs.
Thank you. All right, so conditional use, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this application?
And seeing none, I move to close public hearing. Second.
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, and Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, we'll continue on and we'll, let's see, make a motion to approve conditional use CU-26-002.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. Gooden. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, and Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, so CU 26-002 is approved.
The next application,
Chair, I'd like to have a 5-minute break.
Yeah. Yep. We'll do that. Quick 5-minute break.
I don't see where, well, Mark's will still be
So
live,
moved.
but we can,
Okay, yeah, so,
yeah.
yeah, so the mics are
Technically,
on.
we would do a motion to approve.
I'm just guaranteeing we don't fall asleep by keeping it at 40 degrees in here.
He just cranked it down 3 more, so.
All right, Mr. Moore, we'll continue with ZM 25-002.
We'll let the applicant stop talking so we can continue. Just tease them a little bit here. So this next presentation, I'm combining applications ZM 25002 and PDP 25003. This is typical practice for us when we're combining a rezoning the subject property and a preliminary development plan recommendation for approval for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Really, so I don't have to repeat myself with 2 similar application contents. Just as a reminder, this will be 2 separate votes for first the zoning, then the preliminary plan for the commission. And again, just as a second reminder, Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this the first time in January of this year. It was requested to be tabled for the applicant to work with staff on some of the deficiencies in the staff report for it to come back. So that is what is being presented here this evening. So given kind of the context of that, I know it's been several months. I will try to recap, but I'm not going to kind of harp on some of the location details of the property. If you have any questions along the way, need a reminder, feel free to stop me or ask me questions at the end. This subject parcel is approximately 112 acres. It is located on the to the west of Miller Farms residential development, which is in green on the map here. The Miller Farms development in total, with the inclusion of single-family, multifamily, and townhome development, was 444 units. The applicant here this evening is requesting approval to rezone this 112 acres for 271 single-family lots. Again, frame of reference, the single-family phase for the property to the east by the same developers was 118 single-family lots. This plan itself is much less dense than the last phase that was approved by City Council. That applicant is currently going through civil engineering review for 2 of the phases of that project, and hoping, I believe, to break ground this year on it still. They're in the process of getting zoning approval for this 271 acres prior to our zoning codes being changed that to allow for what they're calling the estates at Miller Farms. The estates at Miller Farms Again, is all single-family homes, 271 of them on the subject parcel. This property also, just for frame of reference, was annexed to City Canal Winchester in January 1 of this year. So we've had a little issues on recording it with the auditor's website, but it has been officially recorded. This is a kind of the newest growth to the city boundaries that has happened in 8 years, 9 years. I think we haven't annexed any property to grow since then. When looking at the contents of the subject property, this is kind of like a existing site condition. It shows there's some mature kind of tree line fencing that's throughout the parcel. There is a kind of wet area centered around the parcel, has some mature tree growth. But this really just serves as an existing condition graphic that shows with the farmhouse, 99% of this property has been farmed for a long time. When looking at the development plan itself, again, the applicant is proposing 271 lots. The site plan is broken down to connect to the development which has been approved to the east. This is the single-family development phase here, this kind of L shape from the neighboring community that is going to be under construction. This road was designed to have a stub street to the north that is carrying through to this section of property, a stub street to the section south of the ditch that is carrying through to this parcel, and then this property itself is connecting both north and south halves of Lyle Ditch together. The property itself is proposing future stubs to the south to adjoining parcels. We require in our planning efforts to have stub streets connect to adjacent available ground when available to promote good connectivity, to promote good traffic patterns. I would say that historically we have been not so good about connecting on the other end of these connection stubs, but there's always the chance that this next project will make it. We have some stubs in Ashbrook Village that have yet to be connected to other parcels, other farm ground. We have some failed stub connections in Winchester that never made it, things of that nature. So, best practice is always to provide them for future connectivity. When looking at this project itself, 2.4 units net density per acre. This project is proposing 38.8 acres of total open space, which is roughly 34.5% of the project. Going through this request here, the applicant's plans have, just for a frame of reference from the last time we discussed this in January, have increased the total amount of open space from our last discussion. It has also increased the total amount of connectivity to the trail system that is being provided throughout this development by opening up more opportunities. This development plan has also been modified based off of Franklin County engineers to remove the second access off of Hayes Road. So when you guys saw it in January, it was very similar to kind of this double swoop. This right-of-way here is in the Franklin County right-of-way, not the city of Canal Winchester. We cannot annex the right-of-way in front of this parcel. So the county limited to one access drive for the property. So the applicant has kind of redesigned this to be a sweeping road that comes off of it to allow for all of these lots to face outwards towards Hayes Road and provide additional buffer and green space from those lots to Hayes Road. There is very similar kind of development patterns up Diley Road in Pickerington as you're heading kind of north of BC Road. For those that kind of travel that way frequently, you'll know what I'm talking about. The applicant has broken down their development plan here into 3 different lot styles. A 52 by 125, a 62 by 125, and a 76 by 125. The applicant has noted that there is going to be a minimum, let me get to my line here. There is a minimum number of lots for each category, and that those lots are basically committing to the middle two sections, and the smaller section lots could change based off of market demand. With that intermix, both staff and city council promoted kind of differentiating lots to allow for more diversity of housing options and types throughout the development. The applicant here is also proposing some roadway networks. Again, I kind of discussed already with the trail connections in purple, some connections to the public path systems and sidewalks here in blue. Again, more sidewalks around kind of the central green space that they're retaining. One of the items that staff had noted that was not accomplished from our prior conversations is this main north-south road that connects Hayes Road to the next major kind of public road south of this adjoining farm. Needs to be designed to be a collector street, similar to, say, Dietz Drive, Williamson Lane, a little wider pavement section, to really show that the traffic, that's how you kind of get to major roads from that neighborhood uninterrupted. This road, staff is recommending be widened to 70 feet and right-of-way with 36 feet of pavement to serve as that collector street. The remainder of the roads throughout the subdivision are 30 feet of pavement and 60 feet of right-of-way, so it's really a technical item, but to have that be incorporated into any final development plans. When looking at the landscaping component here, very similar from our discussion in January, the applicant is committing to replacing all the trees that will be impacted for utility and roadway construction. A total of 114 have been preliminarily identified. For the single-family lots, the applicant is noting they will meet one tree for every 500 square feet of building ground coverage. But with some of the smaller lot sizes, the applicant would like the ability to plant some of those as street trees, open space trees, don't have to commit those to be on the lot itself. For the kind of access and open space exhibit, this exhibit prepared by the applicant shows all the open space that is being provided throughout this development to get to that 38 acres. The area staff has outlined in red is going to be a condition of approval, that this kind of general area or something more defined for a final development plan be also associated with a public access easement for all the open space along Wild Ditch. The open space from this phase here is going to be in a public access easement. So to have a continuation from Lithopolis Road throughout the whole parcel, basically heading to the south, allows us to be used for the public. That way the community can't sign it as private, keep people from utilizing this resource that's being developed kind of into this corridor. The development pattern has examples for public amenities that are going to be provided throughout the site. Again, these are just examples. They'll be nailed down more during a final development plan, but there are some commitments for fencing, for public archways or gateways, pavilions, benches, things to be utilized along the trail system, and to help brand the neighborhood similar to the phases for the project to the east. Again, as part of that, the applicant is proposing to continue kind of the hedge setback from Hayes Road to help buffer this property from adjoining residents, with mounding, landscaping, and then the decorative crossbuck fence in black that will match kind of the other phases that have been approved, and this line in red up on top of the screen here. When looking at some other kind of details, the applicant is showing similar street lights that meet CW specs. This is really a graphic to show they're going to have street lighting. This is kind of fluid, that can change. So the final development plan, civil engineering plans, like we would probably want something up in this area for reference. But again, just showing the street lighting will be incorporated into the development. For utilities, those utilities will be pulled from the east with the development of Miller Farms. As those phases kind of get constructed, they will go to the west to this property. Just to give some kind of context, it's not really called out in this application, but I'm sure Andrew can speak to it from the applicant side here this evening. Rockford Homes is developing sub-area A. Planning and Zoning Commission approved their final development plan. In talking with both the applicant and Rockford, they would like to immediately roll from this section of A to this section of this new project, to have kind of all of their development be focused on the north side of Lyle Ditch. So it's not going to go kind of north to south, but it'll kind of go east to west here. So this phase is likely to be kicked off first. As part of that, the infrastructure for this phase will be kind of stubbed to here to immediately serve this. Getting down this far requires more coordination with sub-area B and getting down to that direction. With the utility kind of service area and really the density of over 400, 600, 700 some lots off of kind of the same utility service area, our city administrator, public service director has concerns that the water line does not loop from its termination for this project here at Oregon to this connection point along this major road that feeds into the rest of the development. So a condition of approval will be that that water line loop be installed. Really, it's going to be an off-site improvement as part of this project, same kind of developer, but to facilitate additional water service capacity in case there's an emergency. We don't have to shut down 700 some houses at once. As part of our efforts, this water line is being pulled all from this one point for this development. What we are going to be doing is taking that water line, extending it down Lithopolis Road, running it up Gender Road, and taking it to Ashbrook Road on Washington Street, to really help loop the system to provide some redundancy to protect the neighborhood. In terms of kind of the deviations throughout the project, the applicant has requested a number of deviations that are pretty similar to Miller Farms to the east, in terms of setbacks for the garage, commitments for the porch. This development phase is proposing porches can be closer to the front yard setback line, and screen-in porches, decks can be closer to the rear setback line, so allowing for more stretch kind of this direction. It's also increasing lot coverage to 60%. Our current is 30. So there is some flexibility on their request on that end to allow for additional lot coverage for structures. The applicant notes that their request for that is the lots are narrower and there's almost 40% open space being provided. So rather than having the homes have next to no open space, that 40% is always guaranteed, so to allow for more flexibility for construction on those lots. And the other deviations related to kind of driveway width and placements on the subject parcels. When looking at the criteria for zoning review, again, the applicant's proposal, I'm just going to go back to a pretty picture while I talk. The applicant's proposal provides information on how this plan fits the rural preserve and the future land use map, specifically under the greenway model by clustering small lots, interconnecting public green space for foot and bicycle travel. They've attempted to provide open space buffers from existing residents, integrated architectural standards that closely follow the adjacent Miller Farms community. The traffic study is being currently reviewed by the county and the city. The traffic study will be kind of more important for city council's review under this zoning application for what kind of improvements are going to be necessary. But again, just for a frame of reference, this development connects not only to the one immediate connection to Hayes, but the two additional in Hayes and one on Oregon Road. So there's a lot more traffic. kind of the existing access points for the original approval for Miller Farms with this additional number of lots being connected through it. The applicant has proposed many deviations from the underlying zoning district standards to create more lot density, allow for larger homes and smaller lots. Staff recommends that these impacts be closely considered for their effects on the public health, safety, community's comfort, prosperity, and general welfare. Again, as I noted, their applicant has noted the trade is for more development on the lot, for more publicly open space, common open space throughout the project. And again, the proposed residential growth is noted in 2023 community plan. The city has anticipated future residential growth in this area as planned for the services, and again, the traffic impacts and potential required roadway improvements warrant additional consideration and study, which is currently being done. So staff is recommending that ZM 25002 be recommended for city council for approval. So that's for the zoning map amendment itself to a plan district. For the contents of the plan, PDP 25003, the plans presented are consistent with the purpose, intent, and some standards of the zoning code. The applicant has addressed all their deviations and how their opinion those deviations result in better quality development. Again, Planning and Zoning Commission should closely evaluate those deviations and their potential impacts, and if the benefit that is being presented outweighs the deviation itself. The PDP is in conformity with some of the aspects of the 2023 community plan. Again, rural preserve settlement was noted in that plan, as promoted smaller building footprints, pedestrian connectivity, rural residential land uses, open space. The proposal presented preserves technically less open space than Miller Farms to the east, but again, when looking at the Miller Farms, I made a really cool graphic I didn't put in here. To the east, all the open space in between all of the buildings within the multifamily areas counts as open space. So that, those green areas technically add more percentage-wise. However, when you look at just this chunk of green here and just this chunk of green here, that's the only open space, the sub-area A for the residential parcel to the east. Again, just a difference on what type of units are being provided and how that open space is calculated. When looking at any modifications or minimum development standards established by the zoning code are properly identified. The applicant has done that. Again, however, the Planning and Zoning Commission's job is to closely evaluate those requests to make sure those deviations result in a higher quality of development. The preliminary development plan includes both vehicular and pedestrian connectivity, open space networks, and other connecting site elements through signage, screening, and landscaping. All these elements create a good site planning design. Those enhancements do mirror those of the overall development of the property that was approved to the east. And the preliminary development plan provides regulated coordination and integration of buildings throughout common architectural themes for everything kind of colored in on the screen. Similar standards for community cohesiveness. Again, staff talked about how to regulate the open space to be open for the public to kind of push for that cohesiveness throughout the development. So staff is recommending PDP 25003 be recommended to City Council with the following conditions. Number one, that additional road right-of-way be dedicated along Hayes Road as depicted in the plans. Number two, the traffic improvements shall be completed to comply with the conclusions of the traffic impact study approved by the City of Canal, Winchester, and Franklin County engineer. That a public access easement be included for the open space along Wild Ditch and the west lot line to provide access adjacent to residential communities, to the Greenway corridor and its trail network. Again, that's some version of this graphic, just outlining the area in question. For the fourth item here, the roadway accessing Hayes Road shall be widened to 70 feet wide with a 36 feet of pavement to serve as a neighborhood collector street throughout the subdivision. Again, that is this road dashed in red. And then finally, that the water line planned with Miller Farms, I should have put in parentheses, east, the parcel to the east, along Lythopolis Road, currently proposed to terminate at Oregon Road, be extended south along Oregon Road to loop with the phase of Miller Farms South and Lyle Ditch. Very wordy to just show this graphic here, to loop that water connection. And this, again, this would be kind of a pseudo off-site improvement, but same developer, but to loop that system for the safe access of redundancy. I tried to be quick.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't quick enough, but, and any
Matt,
questions?
Great job. Questions for staff?
I think the main one is a 36-foot wide road encourages speeding, and that's usually the biggest complaint we have. So are we going to build traffic calming into it instead of trying to go back and retrofit it?
So that's a really good comment. When I was talking with the city administrator about this, we were taking a look at kind of the orientation, and for a grain of salt, the lot configuration and stuff could shift, change. This is a preliminary plan, so nothing is tying the developer to exactly what you're seeing on the screen, but just given the speed of how they did the last project, it's probably pretty close. Given that, we were talking about how to do crosswalk bump outs on intersections that make sense to kind of choke down the road in selective areas, to look at doing maybe like a mid-block crossing at this green space to throw in a bump out to choke down that long stretch. So yes, we have talked internally about the traffic calming component. That would likely be something that we could work with the applicant on during final development plan submittal to show some of those details. But again, if nothing else, could be done during civil engineering review.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Anything the applicant wishes to add that hasn't already been covered?
Andrew Bowser on behalf of Wilcox Communities, 7,000 North High Street. Thanks, Commission. Appreciate coming back. We saw each other in January. Andrew kind of covered everything pretty astutely. Appreciate his rather in-depth review of pretty much everything. Most cities don't do that. Your staff is quite qualified. We really appreciate coming back. Very fond of Canal. Always looking for additional growth and development. We're also looking at parcels to the west and to the east and south of this as well. Therein lies some of the stub-offs that are there. The only thing that I would add, based on the same comment that Mr. Deeds had brought up, shifting it from 30 to 36 definitely gives us a little pause, just from the standpoint of what that street could potentially look like in the future. So we have no issues with 1 through 3 on the conditions. We just ask that 4 and 5 be continued to be discussed and wait till civil engineering review to give us and staff and the proper engineers more time to review, talk internally, and come to the correct decision that makes sense for the development, to include the water line and the redundancy, to really kind of finalize a plan. That's kind of the first that we've kind of heard of that, of the additional extension going up. And so we want to take a look at the timeline for the city, where they're at, and how that can be served, especially because there's a final development plan for those townhomes still yet to be brought before this commission and then finally council. And with the potential of an acquisition of the east parcels and a realignment of Oregon Road, running that water line prematurely would cause some issues within engineering. And I just think we're jumping the gun, and we'd rather discuss this further in more detail within civil engineering.
Questions, comments for the applicant?
How many HOAs will be in this development, these developments?
just the one through Rockford, and we hope that Rockford is the same builder that'll be building this, and I'm sure you'll be finding out before the year's end on that final development plan for them as well.
So one for Miller Farms and Miller Estates?
One together, same builder. These lots are just happen to be a little bit bigger. My guess is when they bring back their final development plan, the density will actually even further decrease. They hope to build bigger homes on these ones, 3-car garage on a lot, and you'll start to see sort of the sizing and the massing. And that was kind of the goal as we were kind of working through this with staff, which is why we wanted to differentiate this phase from the prior phase.
I'd probably restate the question.
So
I think he answered a different question than what I thought I heard you.
I just asked if there would be one HOA for Miller Farms and Miller Estates, or will there be one for Miller Farms, one for Miller Estates? That's up to them.
It's really up to Rockford on how they set it up, but based on how Andrew had also mentioned that they're going to go from sub-area A on the north and shift over to the west, which is which is what they would like. My guess is it's going to be one cohesive HOA between the two. And then obviously the other sub-area B and A, different developer, we're developing personally sub-area B, and that'll be controlled within Wilcox Communities.
And then the green space will be responsibility of the HOA or responsibility of the city, since it's public?
So the intent for this is for it to be responsible to HOA, responsible to HOA with a public access easement. That is how Miller Farms East has been zoned and designed. It's not public green space owned by the city. It's owned by the HOA, but has an easement for the public to access and use it.
Is that how Cherry Landing is set up? At least the back part of it, where the
It's
bike path is?
50/50, correct, yes.
Okay.
And just to, Andrew, I apologize if you didn't know comment 4 and 5 were going to be on here. These are comments we've had with Chris Moore for the last 8 months to be incorporated into the plan. So obviously that transition didn't happen before he left. These are some of the items that, we've been working on. I think we mentioned back in January, is that, having a collector road through the development really serves a more regional purpose, which the applicant has noted in their exhibits. Tying this property into the south leads to another major road, public road to the south. And then additionally, number 5 with the water line component. We talked heavily during the east side of Miller Farms to develop that loop. The concern at that time was there was nowhere for that water to loop to because it didn't connect to anything. And now with the threshold of lots, that's what's triggering that connection. That condition number 4 and 5, from my end, like you said, can be figured out along the way. But from staff's perspective, without the requirement for trying to require it during a final development plan, if a north-south collector street verbiage isn't added, becomes much more of the responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to enforce it, rather than being done at the beginning stage. For number 5, this condition doesn't have any timing for that. That can be an engineering exercise for the timing for the number of lots. But again, the importance of this is that loop needs to take place at some stage, just based off of total density. So number 4 and 5 aren't, items that don't have the time to get figured out. I think it's just the implementation of getting them done. That's why they're being recommended during the preliminary development plan.
Okay.
Other questions for staff?
And this is a recommendation to City Council for both.
Yeah, and I know Wilcox always likes a positive recommendation to City Council, but it goes to City Council no matter what. And there's still 10+ deviations here that I think we've done some work on, but there's still some in here that I think still needs some work in terms of maximum lot coverage and, you know, minimum lot area perhaps, but I get the overall, if this preliminary development plan stays very similar to what it is when we get to the final development stage, I do think, you know, the green space and the difference in the lot sizes and the overall density is acceptable. I just think, I guess my comment, so that's my comment, and then I think there will be some opposition there with city council, but ultimately, you know, if I'm thinking through this right, those are the things that were discussed in the preliminary, or in the development text with Miller Farms that we eventually got home on. So,
Yeah, one of the items that I maybe didn't touch on in this too much is the deviations that are being requested here. There's no more than what was approved with east.
Right.
I'll just call it east, with east.
I'll actually say, add to that, the minimum front setback actually increased to 25 from 20, so you actually get 5 more front yard, and then an additional foot on either side. So the minimum went from 5 to 6 on either side. So we tried to continue to add some of the decrease the lot coverage. And again, I think some of the lots are more than likely going to change. I think when Rockford brought its final development plan, they really felt like the 52s kind of squeezed too tight on the type of product that they wanted to bring in to market. These are going to be very nice high-end homes, and I think it'll be very indicative of the community. So no more additional variations outside of that, but I do think we're getting actually larger as we're headed west.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And so this is so we'll have 2 votes here, so 2 public hearings. So if there's anybody here from the public that wishes to speak interchangeably on either one of these applications, I'll open up the public hearing for ZM 25002 this time. Okay. Come on up, sir. If you could just sign in and state your name for the record, and you get 3 minutes, and we won't start the timer or anything until you're signed in and ready to go.
Well, my name is George Daly, and I own property just south of this development along Lyle Ditch. And I'm concerned about the water drainage coming off of this development onto my property, okay? I see you're doing a study on the roads for public transportation. Have any studies been done about the water drainage off of this property?
It's probably a staff question.
Yeah. So continue your comments, and we'll try to address them the best we can when you're done, sir.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm looking at is, has there been a study regarding the water drainage off of this property? And if not, why wouldn't the city consider that and do such a study? Because it's going to impact me a great deal if the water is not retained on this property.
Fair enough.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this agenda item?
Move to close public hearing on ZM 25002.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
So again, this would be a recommendation to City Council for approval.
Okay, Mr. Chair, this is the easy one, so I'll take a stab at this. I'd like to make a motion that we approve ZM-25-002 and forward to City Council for approval.
I'll second that. All right, so motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by the chair. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Okay, so I can open up the public hearing for this one.
You can, if you want, I can try to answer, the applicant's, questions for the commission.
Yeah, please.
So the applicant did provide a stormwater management report as part of their preliminary plan submittal. That stormwater report is really their civil engineer's back check on how they're going to handle kind of all the stormwater runoff, retention, basin sizes, approximate basin size, et cetera. Again, from my end, this is, I have a different screen for you. Yeah, so what I was saying is that the applicant's civil engineer submitted a preliminary stormwater design, basically sizing from a concept level, all the basin placements. They're all sized a certain way to handle the development growth. From my end at this stage, that is very rudimentary and meaningless, because this discussion this evening is not approving this plan. The discussion this evening is approving a concept for a plan and minimum thresholds for how to develop. So the applicant could come back, in 6 months and have a totally different plan, but as long as the number of lots doesn't increase, the standards for development don't decrease, they could change everything. So that environmental study for stormwater growth will take place much more refined at a different stage. Today's just a picture and words. What they're showing here is not guaranteed to be built. So at a future stage, better information will be produced to size everything exactly. And I'm not saying that these guys didn't do that now, but it's not their job to do it to that level yet. Once the plans for how the lots will be developed gets approved later, at a later stage, civil engineering gets submitted from their engineers to the city's engineers to verify it all works. So we actually don't review how stormwater details for pipe sizes, pipe locations, swale sizes, swale locations, runoff. We don't look at that until after all the public hearings have been completed, because that takes months and months of work and tens of thousands of dollars. So that is the very last stage prior to development taking place, is all that detailed design work. Now, just as a reference for the commission, I'm not entirely sure where, these two live, but there is a ditch that separates 90% of the project from the north to south, that all the site naturally drains to. And then on the north side of the ditch, it drains south, and there is a landscape berm that separates, immediately 90% of that. So I would say, just from a concept level, this plan should not impact anybody off-site more than the project they just got approved to the east. But again, those details have not been designed at this stage. We are 8 months, a year, probably away from that. Just for clarity for the question being raised, and I wanted the commission to be a little more informed on how that process is done from the city.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Moore. All right, so as a formality, I'll open up for public hearing on PDP 25003.
Seeing none, I move to close.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes, and Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
And so again, this would be a recommendation to City Council with, for approval with staff's recommendations at this time.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve preliminary development PDP-25-003 with a recommendation to move to full council with the following conditions, and I believe, as we heard, condition number 4 and 5 will continue to be worked out as we move through the process.
And those are still conditions on your motion, correct, Mr. Deeds? Okay.
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. Gooden. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, so PDP 25003 and ZM 25002 have been recommended to City Council for approval.
I'm gonna try to keep all new business really quick. Don't ask me questions. Just teasing.
It's hard.
Joe Wildenthaler sent a resignation letter to myself and the mayor and the city administrator. He is looking to step down from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the mayor is currently reviewing applications to fill that seat. He's likely to propose a nomination at next Monday's city council meeting to fill his term for the remainder of this year. And then that person has the ability to continue and ask for a new appointment for another 4 years. So don't scare them off because they only have a few months. They can't commit for 4 years, immediately. For other old new business, staff is still reviewing zoning code updates. We are on draft 5 of the first quarter, the third draft of the middle half, and the first draft of the last quarter. We're hoping to have another steering committee meeting for that within the next 30, 45 days to review the middle half. So you guys already had this, I'm looking at Rick because he's on that committee. You had the review for the first quarter already. You have not reviewed the middle half yet. You'll review that, make some comments, recommendations. The steering committee is not reviewing the last quarter, but I will send it to you and Deborah because it's the subdivision regs. Once we get another draft into it, and the subdivision regs really affect the Planning and Zoning Commission and all the directors and staff more than kind of the rest of the committee. So I will send that to you and that's available as well. Like I said, we're just still in the first draft of it. I just got it last week. With all that being said, I told Jesse here, I hope to get something to the Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation to City Council in September. Really big fingers crossing here. Because I would like for it to be adopted and implemented for January 1. New year, new code. Don't know if that's happening, but just chant it at night. New year, new code. We'll get there. That's all I got.
Anything on the horizon?
Said no questions. Yes, we have several applications that did not get complete in time for tonight's agenda, so we have a couple more variances that will likely be on next month's meeting. There's always the possibility of a rogue commercial project to show up, so.
Just real quick, the lift vehicles along Bowen, I thought we were going to suggest, right, that they...
So that property received its zoning approval received its rezoning approval in May from City Council. May, went to effect in June. No, they waived the readings and passed it by emergency. So that went into effect immediately. That applicant currently does not have any occupancy to operate on the property still. They are an impending zoning violation. They have until tomorrow. They have until the end of the week to get us additional information where we're going to be citing them into environmental court for violating our regulations for the zoning of the property. Okay. So that property has no permits to do anything they're doing there at that site.
The only thing I had from old business, that staff could just look at the yellow sign coming in off of Hill Road and Waterloo here by Canal Cove, if it's still relevant. I brought up several months ago. The minimum speeding fine, if that's still a relevant sign.
It's still a sign that's permitted through our code, and I think the current council administration wants to keep it.
So that dollar number is still relevant?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it encouraging? That's up for debate, but is it not fibbing? Correct.
I guess we'll have to mention something to administration, because, like I said, I think it's a peculiar welcome.
I think that was the point.
Yeah, very peculiar welcome.
Don't speed.
All right, any other old or new business?
No.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds, yes. Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Timeout, 9:51 PM.
Who's second?